So welcome back to another video. In today's video, it's going to be somewhat informal because we're going to be talking about the Great Reset. Now, we're talking about how to escape the Great Reset. Not that it's entirely possible, but essentially how you can hedge your bets outside the Great Reset if you aren't someone that's particularly fond of what's to come in the future. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Great Reset is, a quick rundown of the alleged Great Reset is basically a plan to reimagine society in a post-COVID world. As you can see, the COVID-19 crisis pretty much destroyed what we know as the current state of our economy. And in doing so, it actually had a bunch of chain reactions. So the Great Reset was something that was proposed by the World Economic Forum, something kind of like the United Nations, where all the rich people and wealthy elites get together and decide where society should be headed in terms of, I guess, the economy and things going on that really matter, that will actually affect our future. So essentially why many people are scared about this, because on the surface, the Great Reset actually looks really good. But there are some things that the Great Reset have proposed which look really scary if we look a little bit deeper. Now, in this video, I'm going to outline 3 things that I'm going to be doing to prepare for the financial, quote unquote, financial reset, and things that I think, may be of some advice to those who are watching this video. This is going to be an informal video, so yes, it is a screen recording, but I find that this video is probably going to be very valuable to those of you, who are watching. So, what's the first thing that I plan on doing with my finances to hedge my bets outside of the global reset? The first thing that I'm going to be doing myself is I'm going to be getting as much Bitcoin as possible. Now, when I say as much Bitcoin as possible, I mean as much as I can invest to a reasonable amount. Now, I'm not saying invest every single of your pennies into Bitcoin. I'm just saying at least a small amount of your net worth should be in cryptocurrency. Now, I'm not just going to state this without saying a good reason why. If you do know, Bitcoin is something that isn't controlled by anyone. It's decentralized, meaning that no one entity actually controls Bitcoin or can really alter the price of it to a certain extent. You see, with the Federal Reserve printing trillions of dollars, the US kind of controls how that economy works. There have been so many different economies out there that have collapsed currencies, and all of these things could happen again. As we do know, trillions of dollars are being printed in many economies worldwide, with stimulus packages, furloughs going out. So many different things are devaluing the dollar. Now, Bitcoin is something that is finite. Like gold, it is a finite supply, meaning the value theoretically should only go up as long as the demand increases. So this is something that is going to be a good hedge against the Great Reset if it does come. Now, as we know, there's some cases where the currencies have crashed. As we could see in Turkey, the lira, it just absolutely crashed. It lost 34% of its dollar value. It lost 30% of its value against the dollar. And, this is something that is just crazy. It's absolutely crazy that your money can lose 34% of value. Imagine that happened to the dollar, right? You're there, you have your savings, you build up your savings, and then suddenly you lose half of your net worth due to the currency crash. This is something that I don't think is impossible. And you might be thinking this is a conspiracy video. It's not. It's just something that is based in somewhat fear. But then again, the future is uncertain. Now, of course, the future being uncertain, it doesn't mean that I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Maybe you might buy Bitcoin and it might go to zero, which is why I recommend having an amount that you are willing to lose. So don't put so much in there that you're checking it every day and panicking on if it goes down 10%. This is a simple bet outside the financial system. Maybe you might put up $100 in it. Maybe you might put $200. Maybe you might put $2,000. However much you think should be there, you should put there. Now, the dollar may not collapse. The dollar might be fine. Society might go back to normal and the Great Reset may not even happen. However, it would be worth it to actually play some small hedges and some small bets that if it does, you aren't completely screwed and you aren't in a terrible situation if things do go for the worst. As we do know with COVID-19, yes, things are seeming to get better on the surface, but what do the global elites actually have planned for us as normal people moving on into the future? We don't know, which is why Bitcoin is something that's great. It's, sort of right now acting as a global reserve currency, even though that wasn't really the intended purpose. I feel like in the future, maybe you may watch this video back and think, man, if I did invest some Bitcoin, it might be something that you may have missed out on. So this is something that I'm personally going to be doing. I'm probably not going to be putting that much into Bitcoin, just enough so that if it does go up a bit and if the currencies do continue to crash, we can see things like Bitcoin skyrocket and you're actually going to have something worth value. for number 2, the next thing I'm going to be investing in is going to be real estate. And I'm going to explain why I think real estate is a great investment, especially for the times that we're in now. Great reset or no great reset. Now, the reason I'm planning on purchasing real estate as quickly as possible and as much real estate I can as possible is because the Great Reset actually aims for no private property by 2030. If you don't believe me and you think this is just maybe a lie or perhaps something that I don't know what I'm talking about, look at this. This is a video produced by Sky News Australia, a reputable news source in Australia. Now, in this video, they talk about how it aims for no private property by 2030. And this was stuff that is published on their website. Now, what you need to understand is that many media companies right now are actually going the opposite when it comes to this Great Reset stuff. What they're doing is they're actually producing publications which show that the Great Reset is something that is absolutely great, and everything that opposes it is a simple conspiracy theory. However, this is not true. What you need to understand about conspiracy theories is that conspiracy theories are pretty much based on not that much information, I would say. Whereas with this is a genuine concern in a changing world. When you Google no private property by 2030, you can see that it says no privacy, no property, the world in 2030, according to the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And it aims that private property rights are to disappear from this planet by 2030, according to the projections and scenarios from the World Economic Forum. Now, the reason why I aim to purchase property is simply because, as you do know, what they say is that private property allegedly is too much of a deal breaker when it comes to equalizing capitalism. And it doesn't make sense because this is never what capitalism was about. Capitalism was about those who work hard get rewarded and those who produce value get the most reward. Now, essentially what they're saying is that private property actually just goes too far. It allows wealth to be passed down from generations, and it just makes the poor poorer and the rich a bit too much richer. And basically what they're trying to do is close this wealth gap. Now, if they make it illegal to own private property, which I don't think is going to be impossible considering the fact that in many cities in the Western world, you're actually pretty much stuffed when it comes to purchasing a property because it's so expensive. I would say that this is something that could easily happen, which is why I plan to purchase property as soon as possible. Now, this is from the World Economic Forum's website, the official WE Forum website. You can see it says here how life could change in my city by the year 2030. Now, of course, you can see that they've written this as somewhat a utopian future. Now, as you can see on this site, some key things, what they're saying is that I don't own anything. I don't own a car, I don't own a house, I don't own appliances or clothes. Now, we can clearly see that I don't own a house. And what's something that's become more and more prevalent in today's society is that, as you know, as people are growing up, house prices are near impossible to afford for any millennial. As we all know, people come out of university and are already in hundreds of thousands of pounds of debt. They're around hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And what happens as we come out of university? You're struggling to find a job. And you can barely afford saving up for a deposit. Unless you're wealthy or unless you're an entrepreneur and you're in a business, it's near impossible for the average person growing up right now to afford a house. So what if they make it even harder to buy a property? How is it even going to be challenged considering no one can really afford a property right now? Which is why I'm going to be investing my money into rental properties as soon as possible. And I know saving for a deposit is hard and it's something that many people can't do, but it's something that I definitely plan to do. If I own property rights before they actually change them, maybe I could be one of the lucky few that actually owns a property before they actually decide to decimate private property rights. As we know, laws and things like this can change quickly. So it's something that I want to do sooner rather than later. So as we can see further here, it says today private property is often called greed and individual liberty is smeared as selfishness. So this is something that I was just talking about, and this is something that you need to pay attention. You don't want to be in a society where private property is called greedy and nobody can afford it and you're just renting a house for the rest of your life. You want to be able to at least either buy a property now, even despite there might be a housing bubble, or buy an investment property so that you can own some kind of wealth when things inevitably change in the future. The thing is, nobody knows what's going to happen. I don't, you don't, nobody really knows. Things can change very quickly. And after COVID-19, which doesn't seem to be going away despite there being a vaccine around, we need to make sure that we pay attention to exactly what's going on. Now, the last thing I'm going to do when it comes to the personal finances of mine to prepare for the Great Reset that could be here within the next couple of years is to make sure that I'm paying attention to the economy as a whole. I need to know exactly what's going on all times every single day. The reason I want to be able to do this is because I don't want to be someone who is just left looking and wondering what actually happened. You see, right now I'm paying attention. I've realized that they're trying to end property rights. So me trying to buy real estate now before they actually change the laws makes sense. I realize that they're printing trillions of dollars. So me trying to buy Bitcoin, something which has a finite supply, and also probably purchasing gold and precious metals is something smart and a hedge against the dollar collapsing. So you need to make sure that right now, and what I'm doing is paying attention to the economy and making sure I understand exactly what's going on and exactly how it's going to affect me. You need to understand where you are in the financial system. Are you someone that's incredibly wealthy? Are you someone that's incredibly poor? Where are you on the financial scale? How much savings do you have? How much money do you have invested? Where is that money invested? What's going to happen to those investments in the future? Is COVID-19 going to change that? These are all the questions that I need to be asking myself in order to make sure that in the future, I'm good financially, and that me and my family are completely 100% secure. And these are some questions that you should be asking yourself as we move forward. So those are the two main things that I would say are the best bets against the financial system and against the financial reset. It would be to purchase real estate, purchase Bitcoin, purchase gold and precious metals. And even if the Great Reset doesn't happen, these are still some very decent investments that you are going to have.